welcome to RapBabble, the now monthly hip hop podcast. I'm changing the format a little, so now it'll be monthly instead of weekly because I'm really not keeping up with it. So I'll just admit defeat and just actually put it out monthly. It'll be a retrospective, so what's happened that month, and now we're right at the very end of July. So let's talk about what happened in July. And two things happened. The first one was the Tupac film came out. I went to see it in the cinema, and I thought it was all right. It's for the fans, really. I'd only go and watch it if you're a fan. Otherwise, as a film by itself, not great, not remarkable. It started off as a reaction to Straight Outta Compton because that was such a huge hit, and it was a hit out of the gate. So it was the first weekend it made amazing money. And when something big like that comes out, they generally tend to copy it. I remember the same thing happened to Lord of the Rings as well. So this was in the wake of that, so it was never going to be as good. The actor looks just like him. It's really eerie. He doesn't sound anything like him, so there's quite a disappointment when you hear him speak. The first part of the film, and this is a full-on review, by the way, I'm going right into it. The first part of the film, I hated. It was like a quick overview of his life, and Tupac and his mother. I mean, the film started with her coming out of court and talking to reporters. So they were showing her issues with the battle she fought with the Black Panthers, which is a strong start actually. But the problem is though, the first couple of scenes they kind of whizzed straight through his childhood, and it ended up being a lot of arguments with his mum. So he just argued with her non-stop for all the scenes that he was with her. She became a one-dimensional character of just someone who just shouted a lot, and he just wasn't very happy as well. So you didn't really see that he was a human being. So that didn't work very well. Also, there was a backdrop of him being in prison and being interviewed as kind of the frame of the first half of the film, which I don't think particularly worked very well either. But it wasn't bad, but I don't know, it didn't really do much. I would have just kept it as it was. As time went on, so talking about his acting ability, this is his first job, by the way, his first major acting job. So they probably picked him up because he looked like him, and he had to practice the acting after that. So he didn't really sound like him, and obviously he looks like him, but I noticed, like, not that he just didn't sound like him, he didn't feel like him, but then as the film progressed, I noticed that towards the end he actually had the energy, and he actually sounded like Tupac as well. So I think he did a good job towards the end, but at the beginning he didn't really sound like him, and he was a bit flat, and I doubt the teenage Tupac would have been like that. So I didn't like his portrayal at first, but he actually got really good towards the end. It got really good. Like, there was one part where it almost felt like it was him. The way he was speaking as well. It was the way that he just changed his voice a little. But he couldn't really sustain that for long periods of time or for proper scenes. It was just like this one small bit that he managed to do it well. I mean, it did a decent job for someone who's not a professional actor or who's never had a big role. So he's done a decent job, but the script was just a bit lackluster. There was nothing to be excited about. There wasn't really a huge amount of story, but it's a biography, so you can't really expect too much of a story. But actually you can, and the only way you can do that is if you actually just cut bits out and just like focus on a small part of someone's life that is a story. But they didn't do that. They tried to follow his life all the way through. So you got it from beginning to end. You got his life from beginning to end. I was really convinced by Suge Knight. I thought Suge Knight was really well done. He doesn't particularly look like him, but he did seem like him. And he was a fascinating character. There was something about the Suge Knight character that was a bit more powerful. So I did like the Suge Knight character quite a lot. He wasn't as menacing as he should have been, really, because he's really a tyrant, but he wasn't portrayed. I didn't hate him in the film. In fact, I kind of liked Suge Knight in the film, so he was portrayed all wrong for that reason. Even in Straight Outta Compton, he was much more menacing. Like, I did feel a bit of fear. There's a scene where he goes to trunk of the car to get a weapon, and he goes back up to into the building of the record label. And yeah, I was feeling, he knocked into someone who's walked past him, and he didn't just let it go. He wanted to take it further, and I just felt so uncomfortable and a little fearful. So for this next guy to do it and not trigger any sort of reaction was a bit disappointing. But he is a character that I remember, whereas his mum was just the shouting machine. So I don't feel anything for that character. But at least Suge Knight, he had a much more interesting role to play. They did have this one scene where they led someone into an office to get beaten up, but it's a bit comedy, really, because you just see the guy going into the room. You don't see what happens after that. You see Tupac kind of laughing and giggling about the whole thing, and someone's going in there again. He doesn't really care too much about it. And, you could make it seem really brutal if you wanted to really show what a tyrant Suge Knight is, but they didn't do that. And I think that was the problem all the way through the film. There was just no heart to it. There was no character. It was just a film. It was just a basic film. Didn't go too far. It was quite skin deep. I think their mission was to hit all the points, and they did. So I wasn't hugely excited by the film, and it was quite long. But if you're a fan, it's worth watching. And it taught me a few things that I didn't know already, like the whole Digital Underground thing, because Tupac he got his start with a group called Digital Underground, and he was a backup dancer for them. And then he would start to rap with them, and then he tried to get a record deal through them. He ended up with Interscope, but I remember there's one scene where he was either auditioning for them or asking for something more, a chance to rap. So yeah, I didn't know that happened, and I didn't really know anything before the Death Row days as well. So, but there wasn't a whole lot of story to anything before they showed Jada Pinkett in there. They did show his incarceration. They did show why he was incarcerated. So they kind of hit a lot of the points. Yeah. But there wasn't, in the first couple of albums though, I feel like the story only really took off when it got to Death Row. Otherwise, I don't really know what happened before that, and the film doesn't really say much. A huge amount happened anyway. So, I don't know, the exciting part was much later. Yeah, so it's for the fans. I would see it if I'm a fan of his. If not, then I wouldn't see it as a film. I wouldn't recommend it to someone who wanted to see a good film and they don't know anything about him. Because biopics can be interesting even if you don't know the person. They can still be interesting biopics of people with interesting lives. So for the next story, we're sticking with 90s rappers, and Jay-Z has put out an album called 444. Last week I said it was related to a song on his first album, but I don't think that's the case anymore. And in fact, they just said on Hot 97 that it was an address of something, address of a studio or something like that. I don't think it matters too much. He can be quite a cryptic person. And I don't want to have to bother trying to figure something out, especially when I don't feel like there's going to be a satisfactory answer to it. So I didn't put too much thought into it, and I thought I knew it as well. He even called a song on the album with the same name, which I hate it when people do that. The album as a whole, I want to first off say that I only like the first 6 songs, and the other 4 I'm just kind of bored by. Like, nothing stands out for them in them. He had another 3 bonus tracks on a physical CD, but I don't have that, so I haven't heard those. But I'm eager to hear them because I only like 6 songs so far, so I need to bulk up the album. But I will say that there's a lot of good things to say. I mean, this is all produced by No ID. Great move. Firstly, great move having just one producer. Secondly, great move having No ID. He was Kanye's mentor, so I assume that they got connected through Kanye, who is now out of the picture. Not that he has a bad relationship with No ID. I have no idea about that. But Jay-Z and Kanye are... In fact, he had some lines for him as well. Yes, for the first time in quite a long time. I don't know when Jay-Z does this. Maybe Nas and Prodigy did. But outside of that, like the last couple of albums, he has gone so far to avoid saying names. And this album, he doesn't just say names of people that he has issues with. He says names of people he doesn't have issues with. There's a really kind of sad, heartbreaking line about Future, where he says something like, "How would it feel if in the future someone was playing football with my son?" Which is a reference to Future, whose ex-girlfriend has a baby with him, but she's dating a football player. And it was a funny line, and it was a really good line. It was hard hitting and powerful, but I just don't see why he's saying something to Future. There might be some kind of underlying dislike, but I'm totally baffled by it. I know nothing about it. They were both on the same song on DJ Khaled's album, and it just seems a bit heartless to bring up someone's issues when, you know, Jay-Z has issues as well. Actually, Jay-Z brings these issues up on this album, but it's just unnecessary to mention that. But it's a good one though, and the fact that he's a little bit cryptic with it, and he doesn't say, "Hey, Future," da 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 da. He says, "In the future, someone playing football with your son." It's classy. If you're gonna diss someone, do it in a classy way. I love it. But I'm a Future fan, so I didn't like that. So yeah, the whole album, soul samples. It was like, you know, similar style to College Dropout, and it worked really well. It sounded so good, and it felt like an album. You know, everything sounded similar. Everything was soul samples, and it just worked so well. They were real instruments. If you listen closely, you can hear it. No ID cares about production, and I'm only assuming that from listening to it. But you can hear all the instruments are played. It's not electronic. It just sounds so. It's rich. You know, this is like the handmade equivalent. Like everything else is junk food, and this is the handmade stuff. Or, you know, this has a lot of vegetables in it, and it's like healthy food rather than just junk food. So the music was great. The lyrics, he goes into depth. He really opens up about his personal life. He talks about cheating and how he almost, I mean, he doesn't directly, he kind of says it. He says enough that you know what he's talking about. I guess no, he does talk about it. It's more than just alluding to. He says that, you know, he almost lost Beyonce. He talks a lot about his kids. I was really disappointed to hear him talk about wealth. He talks loads about wealth. There's even one point where he says, "I bought some artwork for 1 million. 2 years later, it was worth 2 million. A few years later, that was worth 8 million. And I can't wait to give it to my children." That's a direct quote. That is a waste of 4 lines. Firstly, we don't care about money in the same way you do. Like, so what? Your artwork has gone up from 1 million to 8 million. That's not gonna inspire. That doesn't inspire us. And I just hate that he's still obsessed with money. This guy has his net worth is 800 million. I don't know if that includes his wife or not. I don't think it does, because he's compared in the Forbes list to Diddy and Dr. Dre, and it'd be unfair if they counted his wife. But yeah, he's in the hundreds of millions, and he's moaning about, he's bragging about making it 8 million. I mean, just, and then there's another one as well where he talks about like keeping the money in the family. You know, my kids will marry your kids, and so we can keep the wealth all together. I don't like this nobility talk. I don't want Jay-Z to become one of those. I want him to stay one of us. If he's really going to join the elites and just leave us behind and keep his money amongst themselves, like, how much money do you need? Hundreds of millions of dollars. You don't need to keep the money in the family. Give them all like 10 million each, and they'll be fine. So I hate it when people can like talk about money as if they're desperate to keep hold of it as much as possible, because they have tons of it. It makes a third reference to money. I can't remember what it is, but just it's. Oh yes. There was a building that he wanted to buy, and he didn't go for it, and he ended up losing out on 25 million. Again, he's sitting on hundreds of millions, and he's fretting about losing out on 25 million. But on the other side, he goes deep into his personal life, and I really appreciate that. And so this album, I've been listening to it a lot. Like, albums don't get this kind of longevity, but I'm still listening to it now, and it's just, this is what happens when you make quality music. People continue to listen. There were no hits on this album. He didn't have singles that took over the charts. He didn't try to, because you can tell. But this is a slow burner, but it's going to be a cult classic rather than a bestseller. And I think cult classics are better. I think it's better slow burn, but still sell a lot of copies, rather than like this explosive, 2-week thing, and then everyone forgets about it afterwards. So I was really impressed by 444. And that's why I don't feel so bad about reviewing it so long after it came out, because this is a timeless album. So the review can come late, but it's still a great album. I didn't have too many songs that I loved. I liked the album overall more than I liked the individual songs, because it was a whole album. It was consistent, and it wasn't just a mix of songs. But in terms of actually individual songs that I like, the first one, Kill Jay-Z, great. There are a few disses to himself. He's kind of not self-deprecating, but he's not talking like he's a superhero. He's kind of talking himself down and talking about some of his failures, and this is not something you hear from rappers generally, and so I applaud that, and I want to hear it more. And that is in the top tier of songs for me. That was a really good one. The other song I liked was 444, the title track. The beat really got me for that one. He does talk about Beyonce and almost losing her in that one. Then there's the OJ, the curse of OJ, or the story of OJ, which he only mentions OJ in the first line, and then after that he doesn't. Haven't totally figured it out yet. He might be using OJ as some kind of metaphor, like everything he describes after that relates to OJ, but none of it relates directly to him. So I like songs that are a bit more straightforward. Or if you're going to be cryptic, be poetic. But that's still a song that I play. I pick it out, I play that. The next one, Smile, did grow on me after a while, actually. So I did like that one too. And then, it's a run of like 5 songs which go well. Caught in Your Eyes, I don't remember it, so it's a B grade song rather than an A grade song, but I know I liked it. And then he has Family Feud, where he's talking about families and how he's saying over and over again, family's important. We've got to keep this unit together, and if one of us, we all the individual units need to be strong so that we can all stay strong together. So he's talking a lot, and he's thinking a lot about family. So I think he's definitely a family man now. He may not be, like when he started, he might have been a bit more half-hearted, but I haven't heard him. I don't think he even mentioned, he mentioned Blue on the last one. She was. It just feels like now this is like solidified. Now he has twins as well. He's talking like dad on the album. And I guess that makes sense. Like when the baby first comes along, you're not dad. You're just kind of adjusting to being dad. But then, a couple of years later, he's used to being a dad now, and two new babies come along, and so he's dad now. So the only one other thing I should mention actually is the second thing. I want to mention the song Legacy, and it's at the end of the album, and so I don't listen to it because the second half bores me. But he does a lot of that talk of legacy and money and giving money to his children and blah blah blah. I don't like hearing that stuff, so I was a bit disappointed with a song like that. The thing I wanted to mention was the reference to Kanye West, which was just 2 lines, but he said that he gave Kanye $20 million, which was through Tidal, because Kanye signed up to Tidal, not as a subscriber, but as a joint owner, and he'd put his music through there exclusively, so they had a deal. So he would get $20 million from the company. And Jay-Z doesn't own the whole company. He just owns, I think he owns the biggest chunk. But, he's had to share pieces to other people, so he owns only part of it. And Sprint bought a big chunk of it recently. And they also bought his album as well. They bought 1 million copies of his album, 444, before, just as it came on sale. They got pre-orders in. He did this with the previous album, Magna Carta Holy Grail, where it wasn't Sprint, it was Samsung they bought 1 million copies before it came out, and then they gave it free to their customers. So Sprint, I think they did the same thing. They got a better deal with this. I'm not as harsh on Magna Carta Holy Grail as everyone else is, because it had more songs, closer to 16, but there were more memorable tracks on there. So, like, if I had to compare the best 8 tracks on Magna Carta to 444, Magna Carta will win. But when you take the whole album as a whole, 444 is better as an album. But Magna Carta has better individual tracks. I could go on about that album because there were a lot of songs that I liked on that, but I'll stick to the present. Anyway, he said he gave Kanye 20 million, and then Kanye had a 20-minute rant on stage, which was about nothing. It was like, so his wife was robbed in Paris. It was a huge news story, and he wanted a phone call from Jay-Z, a kind of, are you okay? How are things? I don't think it was such a crime not to. And then he said, come on, kids haven't played together. We should do that. And so Kanye was clearly hurt, but I think he's being sensitive, because I don't see, they've drifted apart. They're doing different things. So I don't know what he's complaining about. He's complaining like he's been hurt and Jay-Z's done something to him, but Jay-Z hasn't done anything. And Kanye's had this behavior before. He's acted like he was owed a position in a top fashion company, and they didn't give it to him, and this is just the worst thing ever, and I deserve that. He had that mentality. And now it seems like he's doing the same thing. He's entitled to all of this. Jay-Z must... I mean, they're good things to do if you're close friends, but don't get on someone's case if they're not doing it. Just let it be. But no, he goes on stage and complains about it. He doesn't diss him. So he is a hurt friend who's saying, just, call me. But I think I would be annoyed if I was Jay-Z, because he could have called to say that, to put it on stage. He's put it on stage. He's put it public. Jay-Z is not a public person. He keeps his private life private, whereas Kanye West married Kim Kardashian. So Jay-Z doesn't want, the weddings were different as well. Kanye's was a big affair, whereas Jay-Z's was private. So he doesn't want to put it on stage, so don't put it on stage. Anyway, I'm not liking Kanye anymore. He's lost me. I'll keep listening to his music, but as a person, I do not. I've withdrawn my support, and I no longer defend him now. Although luckily he doesn't seem to be getting any crazier, so he might be stabilizing at least. He has withdrawn from the public quite a bit, and he does have a second kid, so I'm hoping that's keeping him busy. But he seems more sane than he did before, because he just seemed like on a very slow downward trajectory ever since the death of his mother. I think that was kind of like when I noticed that, all right, after that point, it was a bit more clear that there were problems, whereas he could have been descending before, but I wouldn't have noticed because he started off really high. But yeah, that was probably a crossover point. His engagement broke up as well. Anyway, I shouldn't go too far into Kanye, despite the fact that I'm a huge fan. But yeah, 444, it's a horrible name, it's hard to get right sometimes. 444 is a really good album. I highly recommend it. Unlike the Tupac film, I recommend this album to everyone. I mean, it might not appeal to non-rap fans. It's not so good that it can cross that. They can appreciate the soul sounds. So I think even if they don't want to listen to the lyrics, they can appreciate the soul sounds. Lyrically, so I like this. I like the content of the lyrics, but lyrically he felt lazy. He wasn't really hitting the beat. I felt like he was a bit. I'll rap when I want to rap. I don't have to rap on the beat. I'll just rap at any time. And so it got a bit talk-like. And I don't want it to sound like talking. This is why I never liked any of Snoop Dogg's music. I want to hear rap, and I want to hear it on the bars and the beats, and I want, the melodies, and I want I want you to ride the beat. And he was not doing that. He was totally off. He was off beat. I mean, he knew what he was doing. He was still talking to the beat, but it doesn't really sound like rap. It is more like spoken word poetry. I got that quote. That was from I can't remember who said that, but whoever said that was spot on because it does sound like spoken word poetry. Um, and just lyrically, like he's not doing anything amazing lyrically. I mean, if he wasn't Jay-Z and I heard these lyrics, I would say that they're decent, they're above average lyrics, but there wasn't really any magic in there. So I think he needs to recapture that. And he has, years between the albums. He could do. And we know he has the capability. That's the thing that bothers me. If you hear Reasonable Doubt, if you hear Blueprint and the Black Album, he has much more potential, but he just chooses not to. But still, at least he's turned it around. I'm happy that this one is good. I feel like these events come rarely. With a lot of it's easy to get disappointed with films and with music, and you don't know what you're going to get, and sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. But this is definitely a high point for Jay-Z. It's going to be in his top, the top half, maybe even the top third. People are already putting it in the top 4 Jay-Z albums. So it is a really good one, and I'd recommend everyone go listen to it. 2 other small points to make this month. What's his name? 21 Savage put out an album, so he's a legit rapper. Like he wasn't just mixtape. Now he's putting out albums, which is less and less of a big deal now, disappointingly. But he's entered that race, so yeah, he's not just a mixtape rapper. He's not just a SoundCloud rapper. And him, along with a few others, I've noticed, are not putting out as many mixtapes as they used to. They're getting big off like a single mixtape, and then they'll put another one out as if it's an album, a year later. And I like this trend. I hated the flood of 5 mixtapes a year. It's just way too much material. So 21 Savage he's put out an album now. The other one I wanted to highlight was Meat Mill. He's put out a new album called Wins and Losses, and he had a pretty difficult time with his relationship, putting him in the media spotlight. He didn't really want that, and he's not that type of guy. And I'm glad after it's all happened, he hasn't gone the route of reality TV, which he probably could have done. He could have gone the cheap route to try and make quick money from all of that stuff. No, he went back to music, and I really appreciate that. And that will give you longevity in this rap game. So it's good to see Meek Mill back on that. Haven't actually heard anything off it yet. I don't really listen to the radio hugely. And Meek Mill's never really caught me. I don't really like gangster rappers, so I don't want to hear threats of violence. So I was never interested in listening to Meek Mill, but I'm interested in the guy. He as negative as his music is, he is in some ways a positive person, and he is trying to be a good role model, and he's staying out of trouble. And I like hearing people do better, especially when they're wise enough to know not to get themselves in trouble and they're trying to lift themselves up. So I like Meek Mill for that reason. And comparing him to Kanye West, he's stayed relatively humble. I appreciate that in a rapper. That doesn't happen that often. So I should probably give it a listen. Meek Mill's had some good songs in the past, some good album tracks, so I'll check it out. So that's everything for July, and we'll be back in August. I will see you then.